All right. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening. This is, I'll name this segment later, GTG Spits That Grease, etc., etc., etc. Title in the works. Hopefully you guys are all doing well. And yet again, with another topic video, if you will, speaking on the Truth Seeker interview that happened with DSP. There was Darksydephil was a detractor that was on there, and obviously with Steve himself. And I wanted to ask you guys, I wanted to run it by you, actually. What was your takeaway from the interview in that? Did you find it, let me see here, let me check my notes here, here we go. The Truth Seeker interview, entertaining or informative? So that's what our topic is for today. I'm sure that the title is already giving me away. Hopefully you guys are doing all right. As you see, we're over here at Tim Snortons. It's on me. It's early. So, you know what I'm saying? Probably gonna go for a breakfast sandwich, a donut, and obviously some coffee. It's a good way to start the day. So it's on me. So feel free to eat, to be honest with you. Can't skip breakfast. In any case, what did you guys think about the interview? Did you find it entertaining or informative? Or, as another byproduct of this, what was more important to you? That it was informative, entertaining, or a bit of both? I have to say that Steven took a very bold move, to be honest with you. Not because he had an overwhelming amount of evidence for every particular topic that he had, but the moment that he sensed that DSP was not going to give him a straight answer and was going to start talking in circles, start giving him a bunch of verbal bloat, and so on and so forth, he immediately just went on to the next question adjacent to the original. And he kept the pressure on him. And it got DSP even more frustrated because what DSP is used to doing is letting someone talk, then cutting in, and then giving them a whole lot of word salad, a whole lot of empty calories, a whole lot of nothing, to where he'll speak in such a way that you forget what the original topic is, and then he can be like, and that's my answer, and then move on to the next. And Steven didn't let him. Now, because it was only 90 minutes, and if you've ever seen, I'm sure you guys have watched the Dark Dave Mirrors or a Raw Phil or whoever your favorite detractor is when it comes to restreaming, you see that DSP has continued to expand the Bottom Bitch podcast, the daily therapy session, yada, yada, yada. And he's going to continue to do so. I've said this for a while, and he's proving my point because there's no other way for him to go about it. The least amount of games possible, or the least amount of time he spends on playing games, and the more money he can get for just talking, the better. Because that's exactly what he wants in the end anyway. So he's slowly working his way to it. So by hitting Steven with 90 minutes, possibly 2 hours, if you will, he was limiting however much time that Steven had to work with, and more importantly, the amount of evidence. Because no one's going to come out with the most damning evidence in the beginning. You have to build up to it. Does DSP have enough cognitive thought to know that? Maybe, maybe not. But he certainly knew that the heavy hitting stuff wasn't going to come along till later. I think Steven handled it well in the fact that he placated to, or he tried to appease DSP's own self-importance by going over, some of his early history, bullshit no one gives a damn about because we all know about it front and back anyway, at least for the most part. And then started to actually get into the interrogation, started asking him questions. I think that the way it was formatted well. Show DSP the clip in its entirety, or whatever the edits were. Do not give DSP a chance to say, well, pause, wait a second, no. You're gonna watch the whole thing the whole way through, then you can talk. The moment he starts to stall, or he's, like I said, he starts to fucking throw up or regurgitate bloat, immediately go on to the next subject and continue to keep going that way to keep DSP off balance, which is what he did. And he also, I don't know if I'd say he was talking over him because it was supposed to be a conversation, but I do think that him staying aggressive on him, it was unsettling for DSP because he couldn't exercise control. And if you guys have watched it its whole way through, I haven't, but from what I have seen, him not having any control of the situation or no wiggle room whatsoever for DSP, I should say, it scared him. I think it scared him immensely because now he can't control the narrative. He can't even get the narrative out. He's got all these questions, and if he gets confused and he answers and he says the wrong lie for the wrong situation, this, that, and the third, then we start getting to these lame ass gotcha moments, and then it just builds from there, and that's not what DSP wants. Now, granted, that's being very simple-minded in DSP's approach on what the situation is, where Steven's looking for real questions, is asking him solid questions with evidence and wants an answer. DSP has to sit there and try to figure out an answer that will finagle. He's basically trying to do two birds or two snorts with one stone, if you will. Or two snorts, or one snort for two stones. Whatever. You know what I mean? No, two snorts for one stone. Yeah, that'll work. What DSP was trying to do once he saw how overwhelming things were getting is try to answer as many questions as possible with one answer, or one lie, if you will, or one deflect. And it just wasn't working. It just wasn't working. It's very clear, I think, after a certain amount of time, that DSP was just trying to run the clock. He was just trying to run the clock. But then, as usual, DSP's ego betrayed him. And it started to get like, okay, well, I'll sit here. He's basically willing to sit there or lay there and take it because he doesn't want to be labeled as a coward like he ran. Even though that's essentially what happened at the end anyway, from what I've been told. So anyway, I think Steven's approach with the evidence, strong but very pointed questioning, I think it was good stuff. I think it was good work, to be honest with you. The polygraph thing was pretty good. The NDA for that polygraph was good work. Can I speak to your accountant? Can you give me permission to speak to your attorney during your bankruptcy? I have NDAs. I'll send them to you. Look over them, sign them, allow me to have access to these things. That's what really scared DSP. That's what really scared the shit up. Now, truth be told, does Steven need permission from Phil to do that? Yeah, I would assume so, because, you know, someone else is in control of DSP's personal information. I feel like there'd be more involved than you just saying, yeah, go and speak to my attorney, and that's that. I feel like there would have to be, I don't know, I feel like there's more to it than that, but maybe it's just that easy. I'm not really quite sure. But that is really what was unsettling. I think that's what bothered DSP more than anything, is the fact that, wait, you want to speak to this person? You want to speak to that person? Why would they say anything to you? Why would they remember this? Why wouldn't they remember that? Your accountant deals with your shit year by year because DSP doesn't pay him the $1,200 each and every year like he's supposed to, or at least not up front. He pays him $100 installments. For those of you who know, you know. As it pertains to your bankruptcy attorney, yeah, she's gonna have a file on all your shit. And if you're willing to give permission to the researcher, I guess she would be able to give him copies, or at least of certain documents. She'd probably have to black out certain shit for obvious reasons. But I think the crutch of your particular case, if she can, I mean, within reason, I'm sure she probably could give that up with your permission, written, verbal, or both. So I think that's really what caught DSP off guard, because DSP never thought about it that way. He never looked at that as an option or an angle that his detractors could take, which I think if you're a DSP detractor, troll, hater, or critic, that right there opens up a mountain of possibilities now, thinking about those circumstances. But we'll come back to that. So I think that really threw DSP off, and I think also the idea that that could happen, or that might happen, or that could work, right? Or someone would be willing to approach them in such a way. I think that scares the shit out of them. On top of that, let's go ahead and bring in the police reports from the alleged identity theft. It's Darksydephil we're talking about now. Darksydephil saying that, hey, I reached out to that precinct in your jurisdiction. I reached out to the detective who worked your case. You could tell that freaked him the fuck out. Yet again, another angle that he never thought about. He never thought about approaching. You know what I'm saying? To be honest, I guess you credit that to Darksydephil, because I don't remember hearing anybody ever talking about, hey, I mean, people have found DSP's documents before. Like, for example, it's on the farms. Someone found his initial police report from the swatting. Well, Darksydephil says that he has every document from any situation that DSP has had in his entire time living in Seattle. I'd like to talk to Meth Bear and whatnot and see what he has or what he can get a hold of and whatnot, because I'd be interested in seeing some of those documents. I don't know Darksydephil, so I don't want to bother him with that. So that's the thing. I think that the polygraph thing obviously was It was threatening, but it was threatening in its own way. It's I feel like the polygraph thing, I've done a video on it so far, so if it's out, it should be out by now. So you guys know what my feeling is on that. I feel like it, as entertaining as it would be, it doesn't mean anything. But DSP doesn't want to face his own lies. Why bother? You know, even the things that he's willing to quote unquote fess up to now, he feels like he's in control of the situation, so he's okay with living with or standing by that particular lie. You know, he put it out there. He feels like he has control of it. Putting something as serious as some of the allegations that he has said, having that shit in writing and put in his face, that would just crack his ego and his psyche even further. So I'm plus or minus on that, on how pertinent an actual polygraph would be. I think the idea of actually having a detractor up there to talk to Phil was a very good step. Unforeseen. That's a video that I'll definitely do. A bit unforeseen. I wouldn't have expected that. I'm not surprised by how DSP reacted to it, if I had to be honest with you. I think that running in the face of one of these allegedly mentally ill detractors would make him look bad in front of his own audience of dents. So running is not really an option. He had to sit there and take it. What he wasn't expecting, I think, was how Darksydephil approached him. And he kind of I think Darksydephil lulled him into a false sense. At the same time, I honestly think that DSP was playing his own angle too. I think by him coming across, him trying to come across as reasonable to a detractor in front of somebody else makes it come across like, oh, well, I may say all these things about my detractors, trolls, haters, and critics, but I'm willing to sit there and engage with them. I'm willing to talk to them. I'm willing to parlay. You know what I'm saying? I'm not completely unreasonable. I'm not the mentally ill person they make me out to be. I'm willing to talk to them. And by proxy, he's kind of reaffirming while having to readjust that, hey, not all of your detractors, trolls, haters, and critics are mentally ill people who are just obsessed with you. They can hold down jobs and or careers. They can have professions that are actually useful to their communities, the thing that DSP has preached for a number of years that we don't do. So he kind of has to admit a fault to try to get a win, or at least to gain ground, if you will. I'm not sure if people look at that encounter between DSP and Darksydephil that way. That's the way I perceive of it. At least that's one of the ways I perceive it anyway. So that was an interesting segment in itself. I think I don't think Steve necessarily lost his cool. I think he raised his aggression because he had to. Because DSP was starting to get comfortable at the current level, and sooner than later, Steve would realize that he was going to lose him and he wasn't going to get anything out of it. Truth be told, it doesn't matter what Steve offered him. I don't think DSP was going to agree to any of it, because no matter what it was and what the terms were, he was going to be at a disadvantage. That's my particular thought on that. It was still a good try, though. I applaud the effort, to be honest with you. I think people will be talking about that interview for years to come, of course. I think that I walked into what little I've seen, and the people that I had spoken to before, the day before it actually happened, I said I really didn't have an opinion or a way of where it could go, because I didn't know enough about Steven in particular to make that judgment call. Coming out of the environment, the field that Steven comes from, with the whole UFOs, government conspiracy, stuff like that, you have to be skeptical. You have to do research. You have to double check and triple check and quad check everything if you're going to make sure, because the smallest misstep, the smallest stumble, DSP will grasp onto it, just like a lot of the liars in any community, to be honest with you, and he or she will run with it and try to discredit your whole argument off the smallest mistake. So Steven constantly going back to the evidence, constantly going back to the proof, and throwing it in DSP's face was unsettling for DSP, because he couldn't just explain it away. You know what I'm saying? He had to face it, and then he had to give an answer, not address it. He had to give an answer, which he clearly couldn't do. He clearly couldn't do it. He couldn't give his 30 or 40 minute monologues backstories and shit on his justification for it. Steve wasn't allowing that, which was, I think, one of the best ways of going about it, or at least it's a viable approach. So I see the method in that, if you will, it also is tied to the personality involved as well, to be honest with you, because not everybody can pull that off. Anybody can pull off evidence, but it's how you present it and what you saw and how DSP was squirming and shaking and everything like that. I feel like Steven made him far more. He had DSP far more off balance than side scrollers. I think side scrollers cut him deeper because DSP wasn't expecting the amount of influence that detractors, trolls, haters, and critics may have had over Craig and side scrollers in the effect. Now, I'm not talking about money and clout and all that petty shit. I mean in the effect of how much research they were willing to do, what questions they were going to ask, and how they were going to ask it. I may actually do a video that we talk about the comparison between the side scroller interview and the Steven interview, and just to take your temperature on that. That actually would make a good video. I'll make a note of that. So there's that. I think overall, going into it without any expectation, I like what I saw. There was holes in it, obviously, but there's gonna be holes in everything. Nothing's perfect. I think it did what it needed to do for the time. You can't go at DSP the exact same way as side scrollers did. I think one of the reasons why Steven even got the interview was because of Kino Casino. Was because of PvP. Now, a separate video will have to be, do I think PvP set fucking DSP up? That's hard to say, but given the edict that PvP has on Twitter currently, it makes one wonder. That's neither here nor there. But that's my feeling as it pertains to the interview overall. I think it was great. I think it was good for what it was. It may even be great. I think it'll be appreciated more as time goes on. Same thing with the side scroller interview, to be honest. And for me personally, it's another piece in the much larger puzzle. The concept of whether it was entertaining or informative, I think it was a little bit of both, depending on what you're looking for. For me, I'm looking further downrange. I'm trying to look at the bigger picture, and I'm hoping to close some of the gaps with some of the lore that's out there that's unresolved. You know what I'm saying? And sooner than later, we'll get there. And I think everybody plays their part. Everybody contributes their piece to that overall puzzle, to be honest with you. Because that will put the detractors, trolls, haters, and critics that come later, that will come after some of us, in a much better position, and how they choose to not only do content, but how they approach the content. You know what I'm saying? How they perceive, you know what I'm saying, what's out there. And based off of that is how you give your creative spin to it. You know what I'm saying? And I think that's where your creativity, your inspiration, all of that comes from. So I think for me, the interview was a little bit of both, to be honest with you. I'm not expecting anything over the top per se. Though obviously I like having my chuckles and my funnies like everybody else. But I also think that there was some valuable information in there. I don't know what was missed. It's my understanding that the interview after DSP fled, like the pork chop in the night as he is, Steven went over some of the other information that he had that he didn't get to approach DSP on. It's also my understanding that he's going to do another stream later, not with DSP. And I don't know if there's going to be a detractor up there, but he is going to do another stream later going over more of the evidence that he had gathered, because why not? You might as well use it, right? It's like Loaded Lux versus Calico, and that second verse we didn't get to hear, and then he released it on another platform later. You might as well put it out there, you know what I'm saying? Because it may help the next person. So there's that, and I'm looking to track that down whenever Steven decides to do that stream. I'm sure by now, the time of this recording, it's already out. So I'll put that into the queue, and that's something we can go over later on as well, or I can at least give you my thoughts in audio form, if you will, to kind of prep you for what could come next on that. But I think it was a bit of both. And I see the value in both. Obviously, if it's an entertaining, it allows people to engage with it, to interact with it, to have a good time with it. and it can be memorable. I think the information aspect is important if you care about the lore and continuing to pass that information along to whoever the next person that can get an interview with DSP, to get them further along informed and so on and so forth. I think that's what it's a net positive either which way. I could be overthinking it, but that's my particular thoughts about it. I've heard namesayers on both sides, you know, applauding it, criticizing it. To be honest with you, Steven, Darksydephil, and whoever else is involved shouldn't care. To be honest with you, you did what you did with the opportunity that you have, and take solace in that. To be honest with you, like I think we're all to the point. Well, I don't know about Darksydephil because I don't know how long he's been doing this, but I think, or been around. But I think we're at this point where, you know, I think we can all take some criticism around here. I think we're all old enough to handle that shit. If not, then you should probably be reevaluating. But like I said, I think it was pretty solid work for the most part, and I think it will have future value to it. But like I said, that's enough out of me. What do you guys think? How do you guys feel about it? Leave a comment down below, and I'll catch you guys for the next one of these. Hopefully sooner than later, and whatnot. I had a bunch of stuff in the clip before the interview happened, and whatever other stuff that's floating around the Detractor community right now. So I put that on hold so I can get these out. So trust me, there's plenty of content coming your way, either which way. I would have liked to have had some of it out during the Valentine's Day weekend or whatnot. That was my fault for my inability to think ahead. Once everybody here went on vacation and whatnot, and took the time off with their others. That's all that was important to me and whatnot. We can always come back to this. So you have my apologies on that for whatever it is worth. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been, I'll name this segment later. I'll catch you guys for the next one. Take care of yourselves, and I'll catch you guys on the flip. Later, people.